Hello, everyone, and welcome back into another episode of Conversations with Chris and Cameron. It is episode 77. I am Chris Beesmore,
And I'm Cameron Waddle.
and we have a lot to cover on this podcast. We'll be talking about Jaxon Kohler getting eligible for a fifth year and how he has now officially put his name in the transfer portal. Of course, we'll have to see what happens with Mark Mitchell here in Kentucky, but we'll be talking about Jaxon Kohler getting eligible and now entering the transfer portal, and how Kentucky basketball will have a Zoom meeting with him. We'll also cover Jack Pilgrim's one-on-one interview that he did with Mark Pope. If you all haven't had a chance to read the article, I would highly recommend that. So we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about Darius Wabbington. He will no longer be going on a visit to Kentucky Five-Star Center. And finally, we'll be talking Kentucky football updates after what Will Stein and Jay Bateman, Joe Sloan, what all they had to say after the very first scrimmage they had on Saturday. But a lot to cover. How have you been doing, though, Cameron?
Been doing good. Been doing good. It's been a lot, obviously a lot of talking points and stuff at this time with football right around the corner, and then all this 5 for 5 stuff, and then the news of Jaxon Kohler earlier today too. So
Mhm.
it's been a lot of fun. It's a good time of the sports year. We've got all these talking points, but it's also a little annoying to not be able to sit down, turn on television, and watch some
Mhm.
football or basketball. But it's right around the corner. But I've been doing pretty
Yeah.
well.
Hey, right now, whenever we're filming the podcast, only 18 days away from Kentucky football, Stanley Boone Williams Day, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Hey, we're right there. We're close.
Yeah, hey, we're close to week zero. Excited about that. 11 days away until then.
Yep. Yeah, less than
Yeah,
2 weeks. It's crazy. We
yeah,
made it through the off season.
yeah, we have. But let's get into the podcast. So, like I said, we'll begin with Jackson Kohler. Like I previously mentioned, he got eligible finally today on Wednesday. Or on Tuesday, he will have a Zoom meeting with Mark Pope and the staff come Wednesday. So we will see what happens. Of course, everybody has been talking about if Collier probably enters the transfer portal, he's probably going to BYU. Of course, he is from the state of Utah, so it would make sense for him to go to BYU. But even before then, Mark Pope was actually recruiting him to go to BYU. Of course, he ended up at Michigan State. He played all 4 years there, and he would have probably stayed there if granted, or if the roster wasn't all filled up with 15 players. He would have probably gone back to be with Tom Izzo, but now he has a choice to make. Will he go to BYU? Will he go to UK or even another school? I mean, Louisville is, of course, another team of interest, but I would not be surprised, though, if he doesn't go back home and ends up being a BYU Cougar. I mean, I think it would make the most sense to him, but at the same time, I feel like UK should be trying to push for a commitment in case, stuff doesn't work out with Mark Mitchell here at Kentucky if he doesn't, for some reason, become eligible, which I think he will, though.
Yeah, for sure. A kid that grew up 15 minutes from campus. I mean, he's very familiar with the area, and um, I mean, it makes a ton of sense for all the reasons that you mentioned for him to go to BYU, go home for his final year, and yeah, like you mentioned, he probably would have gone back and went for a fifth year as a Michigan State Spartan, but things didn't line up that way, and now he's got to choose his next destination. I mean, if you've listened to the podcast, you know my feelings on Jaxon
Mhm.
Kohler. I'm a huge fan, but I'm at the point that like you alluded to it too. Like you can't just kind of push Jackson to the side, saying, "Well, we're going to get Mark," and then something happened with Mark Mitchell to where you can't like get either. I think it's got to be that's the 1A 1B for me out of all these guys that are available. Like you've just got to land one of them, and I've talked myself into Mark Mitchell so much at this point that like I'm fine
Mhm.
with either.
Yeah.
And if it's Jaxon Kohler, which will be happening August 19th, Wednesday, so we'll see. And I'm sure we'll get reports or something from people that like they'll kind of he may have other Zoom calls or whatever. We'll kind of get some news here soon because I'd imagine him and his people want to get wherever he ends up going pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure. And if y'all, of course, don't know about Collier, 6'10", 240-pound forward, and this past year was one of his best years. So honestly, his best season ever in college basketball. He just had an amazing stat line. He had 12.5 points per game, also almost 9 rebounds per game. Shot the ball very well from the 3-point line. nearly 39% from the field on 4.3 attempts, which is very impressive for a guy who never shot threes up until his junior year. Like his first 2 years, he shot zero point 0.1 attempts per game, his freshman and sophomore year. So insane that his three-point shooting has gone up so much since his junior year, where he shot 1.4. But overall, like Collier, yes, he would be great. I mean, I keep saying Collier would be probably the perfect like Andrew Carr replacement. Of course, Andrew Carr was here the first year under Mark Pope. Of course, not the second season because he was a fifth-year senior. But I feel like Collier would be the perfect like Andrew Carr replacement. It reminds me, Collier and Carr's games are so similar.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing that like Jackson helps with that, like Andrew wasn't necessarily bringing, but Andrew didn't have to, is the physicality. Like he's just a lot stronger. He's an even better rebounder. Like he's they do play similar, and I get like the Andrew Carr replacement. Like it'd be nice to find that four that fits Mark Pope again. But yeah, Jackson Kohler would be
Mhm.
awesome. And like you mentioned, his adaptability to be able to expand his game shooting wise and add a 3-point shot to his game is
Mhm.
yeah, you can't talk about that enough. It's been incredible to see him. And unfortunately, us Kentucky fans, we got to witness it and see his growth
Yep.
from 3-point shooting last year when we played him. But it'd be nice to get him, but you just can't. Honestly, if he goes to BYU, like we both mentioned, it makes a ton of sense. You just can't let him go to Louisville. Like I
Yeah.
don't even know where they're getting any more of this money, but he's actually a guy that like it would be an addition that I'd be like, oh wow, that actually makes sense for them, and I don't want to see that.
Yeah, I don't want to see that. I mean, they're getting all this money from the Papa John's guy, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's Papa John's money, it's pizza money.
Yeah, the Papa John's money. Apparently he's back with Louisville though. How dare he not like come to Lexington, come to UK? I mean, he was at games I remember like 10 years ago or however long it might have been.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Louisville is just crazy with the Papa John's world. It's wild,
It
but yeah,
is.
however they're doing it, I mean, PK and all those guys over there, they better win.
Yeah, for sure. And like you were mentioning, we don't want him to go to Louisville at all. Like we don't want to see Collier or we don't want to see Mark Mitchell end up there at Louisville because like their team would be so dominant. And I feel like though if you get Mitchell to Louisville, I don't think that would be, a good player for them. Yes, he's great no matter wherever he goes, but Louisville is already struggling with three-point shooting, and you add another player who cannot shoot at all with Mitchell. And if you add Collier, yeah, your three-point shooting is definitely going up. So if I was Louisville, I would be trying to get Collier over Mitchell. But I always say Mitchell is the best overall player for any team, but Collier would be like the perfect fit for, BYU, Kentucky, or Louisville just because he'll add, the physicality like you were saying, and he's an okay, good three-point shooter as well.
Yeah, for sure. He makes the most sense for those teams. And but yeah, I think Mark Mitchell is probably, like you said, better overall player. If you're just talking player for player, which one's the better basketball player overall? I think it's Mark Mitchell. But yeah, Jackson Color, rebounding wise, 3-point shooting wise, like it just makes a ton of sense for us. And that's the same reasons it makes sense for BYU and Louisville, just like us. So yeah, hopefully it doesn't happen to where he goes to Louisville. If he goes to BYU, it's just another one of those things where it's
Yeah.
like, well, dang, like this Kentucky BYU thing is just weird, and they're
Yeah.
they're taking a couple of our guys recently. But yeah, you just can't see him in Louisville.
Yeah, I mean, like BYU, I think they're going to be really good. Of course, you'll have Colin Chandler. You could potentially also have Jackson Kohler, Rob Wright also returning back to BYU. So they're really going to be impressive too.
Yeah, they got 5-star Bruce Branch too, so
Bruce
they're
Bryant. Oh yeah, you
yeah
can't forget
yeah they're
about
gonna
him.
be they're gonna be a pretty good team. But they're
Mhm.
I think they're gonna be like they don't have like an AJ or anything, but similar overall like last year because like they don't really have a crazy bench. Like they're
Yeah.
kind of like star-studded 5 or 6 guys, and then it's like a
Hmm.
big fall off. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. But I mean, we don't really have to even pay a whole lot of attention to them. If you're just a college basketball fan, then you'll end up seeing them on your television. But
Yeah.
for us, with them being in the Big 12 and us being SEC, we don't really cross paths a whole lot.
No, we don't unless we play him against him in the NCAA tournament now.
Yeah, which they'll probably try to do that. They'll
Yeah.
probably try to end up making that happen at some point.
Yeah. I mean, they tried to get UK versus Tennessee for a second year in a row in the Sweet 16. Of course, UK didn't live up to their bargain by losing to Iowa State in the round of 32, but that would have been insane 2 years in a row to match up against Tennessee in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, they always try to do a little something to get the ratings up.
Yeah, for sure. Just real quick about Collier, and then we can quickly talk about Mitchell, and then talk about Pilgrim's article as well. So Collier, if you don't know, he had 20 points against UK on 8 of 12 shooting, including 2 for 2 from the three-point line. He also had 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 block in the 83 to 66 win against Kentucky. And it was a blowout. It wasn't even close, and it was definitely an awful game, but it's a game where you're seeing Collier potentially might be going to UK, and you have to love that stat line though.
Yeah, no doubt. Me and my buddies got to see it firsthand, so it'd be cool to see him in the blue and white now doing it, and doing it for the good guys. So,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, that game is one of those that you want to scrape from your memory. But when you're looking at Jackson Kohler and like what he could do, that's one of the games you got to point to, and big time moment, and he played lights out and performed really well.
Well, let's quickly talk about Mitchell. Then we can, of course, talk about Jack Pilgrim's article as well. But for Mitchell, if you all don't know, he's a part of the plaintiffs and all in Kentucky. And today, the night that we're filming the podcast, which is Tuesday night, everybody had to send in their additional information to the court. So the NCAA, the lawyers representing the plaintiffs or the players, so they had to send all their additional information that they wanted the judge to look. And of course, the judge is going to make a ruling at the end of this week, whether that be Thursday or Friday. So I'll be interested to see, what the judge decides. But I mean, with everything going on in the different courts with California, Ohio, now Kentucky, like I would be highly surprised if the judge doesn't rule for the players and make them all eligible, and of course opens up the transfer portal too.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to continue to try to fight against it. Like it just feels like it's going to happen to where these guys get eligible and like you mentioned, the transfer portal gets open and they're able to have some freedom and
Hmm.
uh, choose what they do
Yeah.
from now on. But yeah, it just feels like that's the most logical thing to do at this point, and I feel like it's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, it'll be interesting though if the transfer portal does open. I mean, is it only opening up for the fifth year seniors, or are they going to allow the underclassmen to potentially transfer too? That's my question.
Yeah, I feel like they just have to figure out a way for it to only be fifth year because then it would get really chaotic. But yeah, I mean it's the NCAA, so chaos is not out of the realm of possibilities.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, what happens. So, of course, Mark Mitchell, though, there was one thing, and I posted late last week, thanks to T Wonder, but I don't know if you saw the clip, but I think Mitchell, he was in seventh grade, I want to say, but basically he was being interviewed by somebody and he was like, "What do you think about Kentucky?" And he's like, "Kentucky is like the best school, like I want to go there." So I'm thinking to myself, wow, this might happen. It's been 10 years probably since that interview, so he might now actually be going to Kentucky like 10 years later, which is insane.
Yeah, I did see that interview. That was pretty funny, and I thought it was hilarious that they had brought up like you're from Kansas. What you think about the Kansas Jayhawks, or whatever? He was like, I think they're overrated.
Yeah.
They're a trash program, whatever. It was just funny. But then he talked about Kentucky and wanting to go there, and that being his like dream school or whatever. So it would be cool if it just took some time, but he ended up making that happen.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder. I don't know. Of course, we could probably Google search it, but I wonder if John Calipari did recruit Mark Mitchell at all. I don't think he did because I think his top five was like, I want to say, of course, he ended up at Duke, but I want to say it was like Duke, UCLA, Missouri, and I'm blanking on the other two.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, it was a Final Four.
Final four.
Duke, Kansas, Missouri, UCLA.
Hey, I was pretty close. I said, I think.
Wait, didn't you say those four?
I think I might have. Hmm.
I think you did. Well, yeah. So whoever, when you're watching this, just run that back, see if Chris was right.
Yeah, lucky guess maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you nailed it.
Yeah, I nailed it. But like I said, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Mark Mitchell because he's going to be that bruiser for whatever team if he gets eligibility, which I think he will. But just a 6'10" player that will be very physical. He'll be able to knock down threes, back you down the post. The only thing I really would like to see more of Mitchell this upcoming year is him just being a better rebounder, whether it be getting more second chance points for UK or whatever team he ends up at, or also getting some defensive rebounds too.
Yeah, I'm with you there. The rebounding is definitely one of the things that you want to see take a step forward, and that's like he's really really good for like I was talking with a buddy earlier, and I kind of made this comparison. Like if you remember late in the Gonzaga game with Mark Pope's first team,
Hmm.
there was like late, and I in my head, I don't even remember how it all would like work out, but it was like a constant thing. And it was like a flex screen, get Andrew the ball, Andrew like hook shot. And it was like it felt like we scored on it at like 5 or 6 straight plays. Like Mark Mitchell is like that type of dude. When like threes
Yeah.
aren't falling or a team is trying to run you off the line and stuff, and like you can create things and create opportunities around the basket. Mark Mitchell is that type of
Hmm.
guy that's going to be able to put the ball in the basket around the rim, use his physicality, use his post touch. Like he's going to be able to do that, but it's also he's not limited to that. Like he can
Hmm.
also play on the perimeter. He's not a shooter by any means, but he's not like he made 19 last year out of
Hmm.
49. Like it's not like you can just run away from him and Ben Simmons him
Yeah.
completely. Like he's capable. So he is just like an incredible overall
Hmm.
player. I still, like we talked about, I think Jaxon Kohler makes a little bit more sense just like fit wise, but Mark Mitchell is one of those guys that
Hmm.
like I completely understand the people that are all on the Mark Mitchell train and they're excited about him and want him. And I'm close to being right there with them.
Hmm.
And obviously if Jaxon Kohler ends up at BYU, then it's all in
Yeah.
on Mark Mitchell, but
Mhm.
he's a special player.
Yeah, for sure. And right now, I would definitely lean more Mark Mitchell over Jackson Collier, but like you were saying, I would be fine with both.
Yeah, I mean, either one of them's going to work out just fine. Like it'll fill a
Hmm.
role that I think is going to be big time for us, and both of them raise our ceiling. So
Hmm.
you just can't end up empty-handed here.
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to cover one other thing before we get into the Jack Pilgrim article that he had a one-on-one interview with Mark Pope. I briefly want to mention, but UK basketball, they will not be getting a visit from five-star center Darius Wabbington. Of course, in the class of 2027, 6'11", 245-pound center from the state of Arizona. 24/7 Sports has him as a top 15 player, number three overall center, number four in the state of Arizona. But Kentucky offered him late. It was during the first live period, but they offered him late. They were trying to get a scheduled visit with him. That did not work out. So now he's actually going to replace Kentucky with Illinois. So Kentucky and Washington, they have moved on from each other, and it makes sense because they're still targeting other players in the center with like Paul Asari. So that'll be an interesting player to keep an eye out on. But uh, and other players like Louis Uvuo, I think that's how he pronounced his last name. It's an interesting one to say the least. But Kentucky basketball, they are definitely targeting other centers. So it's not a big loss. Of course, Washington, he would have probably fit Mark Pope's offense the best, but you can't complain if both of them moved on and Kentucky's trying to, target better players as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like you mentioned with I'll just say Paul and Lewis because yeah, they're both their last names are not the easiest to pronounce. Both of those guys, also front court wise, like you have CJ Rosser that's like still out there. So like I don't know the whole reasoning, and there's also something that you'll mention in a moment with Jack Pilgrim's article on why maybe
Hmm.
there's a little bit of like hesitation with Darius Wabbington
Yeah.
and maybe some mutual parting of ways there. But yeah, it's just it's kind of whatever because it's
Hmm.
still early. There's still a ton of guys available. But
Hmm.
obviously Wabbington's a very good player and he'll be pretty good wherever he ends up.
Yep, and it would not be surprised to me if he goes to like Arizona because he's from there or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like that's one of those guys that feels
Yeah.
like Arizona will be able to land
Yeah.
because it's a really good player from their own state.
Yeah. But let's move on to Jack Pilgrim's article now. Of course, we're not going to bring up everything he talked about. We all want you all to read his article because it was really great. I mean, like, if you can get a one-on-one with Mark Pope, do it. And that's what he did. So we'll hit on the key points of what he brought up. So let's get into it. He got asked what was rock bottom in year two for him, and the 2 points that stood out to him, he said the 35-point loss to Gonzaga in Nashville, which I think everybody agreed on. It was a terrible night. UK fans were booing the team out of the arena, and like I said, it was probably one of the worst nights under Mark Pope in a long, long time, and for the UK program, I feel like too. I mean, yeah, probably the last time we felt like this was maybe like the Oakland loss in the first round of 64 with John Calipari, of course. He then left town to go to Arkansas, but probably a lot of UK fans have the same feeling that 35-point loss compared to maybe Oakland loss in the first round.
Yeah, for sure. It's like I think Jack said in the article too, like beat down was a good way of putting it. It was just devastating, and especially in a place like Nashville where you get those neutral site fans that don't always get like to games at Rupp, and it's like full passion and
Hmm.
a great environment, and all the stuff from before the game looked awesome with all the blue that took over the arena and everything, and then it's that let down. And
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
yeah, that one felt like it was like maybe the obvious point, but it was interesting to see and like kind of hear him talk about it
Hmm.
through Jack's article. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely if you polled the fan base, I think that's gonna be a lot of people's answers because that was devastating. It's one of those things that,
Yeah.
like you said, you don't feel that a whole lot as a Kentucky fan, but that was a moment that really stuck with us.
Yeah, and I really don't think it would have been that bad if UK wasn't losing so much prior. Like you lost to Louisville as well. I think you might have also lost to North Carolina prior to that game. I could be completely wrong, but UK they weren't winning any of the big games, and that was a big issue that the fan base had. And losing 35 points to Gonzaga is also terrible.
Yeah, no doubt. At that point, we had lost to Louisville, Michigan State, North
Ugh.
Carolina,
Yeah.
and then it was Tuesday, lost to North Carolina on December 2nd, and then Friday we went and played
Yeah.
Gonzaga
So we weren't
in
winning any of the
Nashville.
big games. Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the midst of that an embarrassing run of
Yeah.
just continuing to lose and lose and lose. And then the game that week with North Carolina was just like historic collapse.
Yeah.
And then you followed it up with that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was just an absolute like failure of a night. And
Hmm.
it was like the darkest, like I remember watching Stephen Peake's like vlogs or game day trip. I don't remember what he even called them like from the season last year. But he would always like video those games and the things that you would hear fans say
Yeah.
like during like the booze was crazy.
It
When you'd see
was.
like the videos at halftime of all of that where it was like, oh my goodness, what is happening? It's just wild. That's a moment in a game that I'll just never forget.
Yeah, I definitely won't forget either. I mean, to be fair, I wasn't watching that game. That was the night whenever I went ring shopping with my fiance to, pick out the ring that she wanted. Of course, I didn't buy it right then and there, but, I figured out what ring she was going to get. But I watched the replay afterwards. I knew what was going on. I kept up with the game a little bit while we were ring shopping that night, but it wasn't my main priority. My main priority was, of course, making my fiance happy, but then I saw we were down like 20 and then like 30 points. I'm like, what is going on? And then, of course, I'm a big UK fan. I'll definitely rewatch anything, even if it's a loss. So I watched the game afterwards and we just played pitiful.
Yeah, I remember that night with the school that I coach at, we actually had a road game. And so that was at 7:30. This game tipped off
Nine,
at
I want to say.
it tipped off at 7, it says, but I don't know if this
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that has to be Eastern. Yeah, 7. Apparently, I was thinking maybe it was a little. I think I don't know. That
Yeah.
this game was definitely still on by the time ours ended.
Yep.
Um, because I remember getting out of the game and I was like, all right, let me see. And I always put my phone on do not disturb. So I was like, I'm not even gonna like look at the group chat. I'm not gonna do anything. And then as soon as I opened my phone, we were down like 20 something. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh. And so I went straight
Yeah,
to Twitter and then I saw the booze video at halftime right
yeah,
away. And then I saw like Jeff Goodman, Rob Doster, a bunch of like comments from national media
yeah,
guys, and they talked about that. And I was like, dude,
yeah,
what is happening to like what is going on? Like, why is
yeah.
this happening? And then that night I listened, this was before I even rewatched the game. I listened to like Rob Doster maybe like on Field
Hmm.
68. He was talking about how it was like the laziest and most lackluster performance
Hmm.
he's ever seen from people wearing
Yeah,
a name across their chest like Kentucky. He was like, I don't even understand. Like there was just walking around and all this. And I was like, all right, I got to see this. And that was, yeah, it was
yeah,
true.
yeah.
And it was just, it was disappointing. But
Yep.
yeah, so I was there with you. I wasn't watching it live, but I ended up seeing it,
Yeah.
and kind of living through the lens and
Yeah.
hindsight.
Yeah, and then DeMarcus Cousins also tweeting about the game, which isn't good. And I think it was maybe Zach that asked Mark Pope about that. And basically, Mark Pope was like, I agree with DeMarcus Cousins. Like, we should never play like that. Like, that's the worst loss or whatever it might have been.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was just unacceptable.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, one of those games you'll just never forget. I mean, it's like because obviously it's a regular season. There's not a ton
Hmm.
of regular season like losses that you ever have like this. Like it reminded me of like the 2018 Duke, like
Hmm.
where it was
Yeah, the
just
blowout.
where it was never a game. But that one I remember like I watched the whole game, or actually I probably turned that one off early.
Yeah.
Um, but this one like there's just never a moment where you're gonna win that game, and it was just
Yeah.
start to finish beat down, and that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about more of the injuries and adversity soon about that. The other rock bottom part he told Pilgrim was whenever they lost Jalen Lowe, and he wasn't even talking about whenever he got injured against Missouri and he was done after that. He talked about basically whenever he got injured during the blue-white scrimmage, whenever his like arm got tugged and then his shoulder came out. So that was basically the other part of rock bottom, which happened right at the beginning of the year. I mean, to be fair, like the whole team was never fully healthy. Jaden Quayton's only played a few games. Jalen Lowe only played a few games. Otega Away had turf toe to begin the season. He did not look like himself. So overall, the team had a lot of injuries and they had a lot of adversity, but Pope is right. I mean, I feel like the season could have been different if Lowell was able to, be fully healthy. And I also forgot to mention Cam Williams breaking his foot during the middle of the SEC schedule. So just a lot of injuries, a lot of adversity, but it also makes sense that, he mentions Low whenever it started to like have that slow decline of this past year.
Yeah, that one definitely makes sense because it felt like as a like entire fan base, there was like a just a sigh of like disappointment, and it was
Mhm.
like, man, like how is this happening? Because we had just had the year prior battling injuries, and specifically our point guard, and then you bring in Jalen Lowe, a guy that didn't have injury history and all of that, and then he gets hurt in a inter squad scrimmage. So it was a very like devastating low point. But that one definitely matches the Gonzaga game because, like you mentioned, like there were other injuries that
Yeah.
like lingered or popped up throughout the year and stuff. But like it's like Oweh, we kind of knew going into the year, and then JQ we knew going into
Hmm.
the year. Cam's was random. Like JQ, it's right before you really get rolling.
Yeah.
So it was just really, really unfortunate.
Hmm.
Horrible timing, and
Yeah.
in the end, that one sucked.
Yeah, and then I do want to uh, give a specific quote from the article that Mark Pope said to Jack Pilgrim that stood out to me while talking about the adversities and injuries and going back to the Gonzaga game where we got blown out by 35 points. But Mark Pope told Pilgrim exactly this. I'm so proud of our guys because lesser men would have folded. Our guys didn't. It's not the outcome that we wanted for sure. The only outcome acceptable here is if we win the last game, right? But the journey we went on and the way these guys grew and overcame, that was pretty great, man. And I agree with him. I mean, of course, you want to win the NCAA title every single year. We want to finally get to number nine. We honestly want to go to the Final Four since we haven't been there since the 2014-2015 season. But I do think this team had a lot of resilience because, like, if you saw that Gonzaga game, we all thought, oh no, like, will we even make the NCAA tournament with how bad we played? Because if we continued to do that, we weren't going to make the tournament. I mean, of course, we still had double-digit losses to end the year, which isn't great for UK's standard, but we got into the NCAA tournament with everything that happened, with your point guard being out for basically the whole year, your starting center being out for the whole year, your starting small forward, Cam Williams, missing half of the year. So a lot of injuries happened, and the team was able to fight. I mean, you saw it all with Otega Away, Denzel Aberdeen, Colin Chandler, just naming a few players, but you saw the fight in this past year's team. And, of course, we want a better story where we don't get blown out to Iowa State in the round of 32, but making it to the Elite Eight, making it back to the Final Four.
Yeah, for sure. I do love that quote from him, and just talking about how proud he is of all of that and being able to battle through all of that. And like we talked about, like some of it was a shocking thing. Like you don't expect certain things to happen, and they still battled, fought through adversity and everything. But yeah, like you said, it's not the outcome you wanted. Like you said earlier, it could have been a matchup with Tennessee. Say you get through that one, you get to the Sweet 16, and it's another Tennessee loss. I don't know how that one changed our
Yeah.
mindset. But yeah, it was just a really unfortunate finish, and it's not Kentucky basketball. And like you said, the only outcome acceptable here is we win the last game,
Yeah.
and he gets that, and that's the goal for
Mhm.
the name across the chest and this entire program.
Yeah, for sure. And he also said we are not in the excuse business. So he knows, like, this past year, yes, they had a lot of injuries, but there's no excuses. Like, he assembled a roster. I mean, he compared this past year's roster to a Ferrari. So he should have been able to be successful even without your starting point guard, your starting small forward and center. Like, you spent $20 million on last year's team. You should have been probably better than the round of 32, even with all of your injuries.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. And it's still like the not being in the excuse business. Like I think he's definitely learned from it, but a lot of your money that's on your $22 million roster is like a guy that you're bringing in that's already injured. And so that was certainly a decision. And I think he learned from it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just one of those things that I think he does get that. It's just it's unfortunate to look back and be like, well, dang, like why did you bring this guy in and all these different decisions that he made.
Yep, for sure. And now let's get into what changed in this past off season. So basically, after that Iowa State loss, basically Pope had to reevaluate the roster because everybody said that he could not bring back majority of this past year's roster because it would not have been successful. Like if you brought back Colin Chandler, yeah, that would have been great. But I mean, if you brought Andre Yelovich, Brandon Garrison, Mo Diabate, no, probably this year's roster would not be good or even great because like those are three players. Yeah, I wish maybe Yelovich would have stayed, but those players aren't going to make you win a lot of games. And I'm not trying to badmouth any player, but we saw how last year's roster was. If you brought majority of them back, it would have been the same thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yelovich, I would have been all right with, but even some of our fans were kind of like out on him and wanted that whole thing to end too. So, yeah, it's just
Mhm.
you've got to like take a look in the mirror, and it might be unfortunate and uncomfortable to have certain conversations and kind of encourage guys to hit the road, but you got to do what you got to do. You have an assignment here, and you understand what the goal is, and
Yeah.
so he had to do what he had to do.
Yeah, and that's to win number nine, of course. But whenever Pope did reevaluate the roster, his big thing was he was looking for creators because he said last year's team didn't have any creators. Of course, you had Jalen Lowe, who was supposed to be your creator, but of course he got injured. Otayowe, though, isn't a creator. Like, he's a slasher and he's able to score, but he's not able to create for others. So basically, going into this year's roster, he was looking for creators, and he has that now with Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins. They had, I think, like a 30% assist rating, so they're able to find, their teammates. And of course, whenever you add Milan Momcilovic, like it's going to free up the roster to be open and everything. But his main thing was to get creators so they would be able to create and score for themselves, but also to be able to get assists and help their teammates get involved.
Yeah, I think like this offseason, I bet like the word that he's probably said the most is creator.
Yep.
And I like it because it is exactly what that team needed last year. Like Denzel worked his way into kind of making himself a creator a little bit, but it still wasn't necessarily comfortable. So instead of having your one and him getting injured, he went and got two. And like you mentioned, like the advanced analytics, like they love these guys when it comes
Mhm.
to assist numbers, getting your feet in the paint, creating for others. And then you throw the best shooter in college basketball out there with them. So, yeah, I'm very high on the creators this year, and I love that that's the
Yeah.
route that Pope took to build this team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think he was probably like he wanted to probably rob right, of course, but he got his creators. He's got now Alex Wilkins. You've also got Zoom Diallo, and then you got your three-point shooter with Milan Momcilovic. Hopefully, other players can step up, make threes like Trent Noah, Cam Williams, Braden Hawthorne, whomever it might be. Hopefully, they can step up. But another key piece of the puzzle for this year's roster was Malachi Moreno. He really wanted him back in Lexington. He was able to get him back in Lexington, and of course, I know fans were a little bit nervous that he might have gone to the NBA draft. And before NIL, yeah, he probably would have gone to the NBA draft this past year. But now he's returning back to UK, and he's probably getting paid a lot of money, 2.5, 3 million, if I had to guess. But I am glad though Marino is back in Lexington, and I'm expecting a big year too.
Yeah, no doubt. Malachi Moreno was like the priority number one, making sure that they got him back. And it got a little shaky in the offseason when we didn't expect it to, and got a little worried about him getting up out of here. But yeah, like you mentioned, non-NIL era and before all of this, like he's probably gone, hitting the road. And
Yeah,
it would have made sense. But yeah, he's not missing Mills. He's doing all right with the money
yeah,
that he got from NIL this year. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm very excited about him. Excited to see like throughout last year he continued to grow. It just stinks for a
Mhm.
lot of fans that they've got a sour taste in their mouth because it wasn't the greatest ending of the year.
Yep.
But add on some muscle, add on just another year of experience, and I think he's gonna be a really good player.
Yeah. Potentially maybe a lottery pick.
Yeah, hopefully so. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would definitely be awesome. But now let's get into the portal versus high school recruiting for Pope whenever he was talking to Pilgrim. So, basically, if y'all don't know, I feel like Pope has been very successful with the transfer portal over the 3 years. Of course, his first year, it was mainly all transfer portals, basically all fifth-year players. I think there were 7 players that were fifth-year players. It was Lamont, Jackson Robinson, Kobe Brea. Andrew Carr, Amari Williams, Kirk Ariza. Was there one more? I don't know.
Ansley.
Yeah, Ansley North. So he had 7 of his 15 players that were fifth-year seniors. And overall, like for him to create a roster that quick and also assemble a staff was pretty impressive. And he got to my goals. I wanted 20 plus wins his first year and a Sweet 16 appearance. And he did that. And everybody was like, wow, if he can do that in his first year with just a few weeks to assemble that roster, can you imagine what he does in year two, year three? I mean, a lot of people were saying year one was going to be his worst roster here at UK, probably of all time. Of course, that didn't work out this past year, only getting to the round of 32, but still had injuries. But I was impressed by that. With his transfer portal additions, I mean, he got Milan Momcilovic here along with Zoom Diallo, Alex Wilkins. So, impressed with that. So, like I said, he's been very successful with the transfer portal class, but not really with high school recruiting. This past year, basically, the staff put all of their marbles in for the number one overall player in the class of 2026 with Tyron Stokes, and they didn't get him. Of course, they were able to get four-star point guard Mason Williams here, but man, it just stinks that they could have moved on from Stokes and potentially have gotten another player or multiple recruits, whether it would have been Caleb Holt or somebody else. Like, it would have been nice to, like, move on from Stokes and hopefully, Mark Pope and the staff learned a valuable lesson this past year.
Yeah, for sure. High school recruiting has been yeah, bad to put it honest. Like it's been rough this time here, but like you mentioned, the his transfer portal run has been pretty good overall. Like a lot of people like clowned on him early last portal, and acted like it was awful. Really just missed on a couple of guys. It was the Rob Wright, the
Yeah.
Donnie Freeman. Like there was a few misses there.
Yeah.
early on. But overall, like I mean, him getting Alex Wilkins is pretty dang good. Like because of
Yeah.
who we were going against. The Zoom Diallo one was interesting because it was like we had just we had the highest offer out there apparently, and that if that's what it takes, then that's still doing a good job recruiting, like
Mhm.
giving enough money to the positions that are needed to be
Yeah.
filled. Um, and then getting Milan, like you mentioned, like it's he's done an amazing job with just
Yeah.
building teams via the portal and doing it that way. Like
Mhm.
his year one was exceptional, but yeah, the high school recruiting has been bad,
Yeah.
and like the Tyron Stokes thing, that's what made it so interesting. Is there were so many national reporters last year that talked about like if they had just pulled off a Stokes, like there was
Yeah.
probably two, three, four more names that they could have gotten,
Hmm.
but they didn't. And so it's interesting. I don't know if that's completely factual, and if it
Yeah.
is, then like what does this team's roster look like if you do get those guys,
Hmm.
and you've got all of that incorporated. So it
Yeah.
would change things up a lot, but maybe it starts to turn going forward.
Yeah, hopefully it changes. But Pope did mention in the interview that he's going to be more selective with his high school recruits, and he said uh, he would rather not take a huge freshman class. So, I mean, I'm not asking for a lot. I'm saying four at max you take, but probably two to three, around there each and every year. And I feel like that is doable. Like you're Kentucky, I get it, it's completely different from John Calipari to now. Plus, NIL is completely different as well. Like players want to return to college so they can get a payday because more than likely they're not going to make it in the NBA. They can probably have a great overseas career, but a lot of players they're not going to make it into the NBA, and that's why a lot of players are returning to college so they can get a payday. But I'm just asking for Mark Pope to get two to three players probably every year from high school. I mean, you got Ryan Hampton already committed. Hopefully he stays committed. He signs his national letter of intent come December. But you already have one. Get another player, maybe two, and just call it a day for high school.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like I'd say two to four for me. And I feel like it needs to be at least one that's immediate impact, lottery pick, like
Mhm.
top five guy. Like I feel like that's not a crazy request. We've seen it done, and we've actually seen schools get like a few of those guys. So if you can get like one top five guy, like just immediate impact and huge like just name, that needs to be one of the priorities. And then like whatever you want to do with the two to three next guys, like whether it's Ryan Hampton, where like it's a high ceiling, but not completely sure what he's going to be. If you want like a developmental piece, like whatever it is. But I think I like the model of like more transfers than freshmen, but I also want to see like a lot of retention because
Yeah.
retention is literally like that's been the key to teams that have been winning and winning big.
Hmm.
It's been retention. It's been top level transfer guys, top level high school guys that ended up whether it was on their freshman year or going years in the future
Hmm.
and down the road. Like you've got to get the talent and use the talent correctly. And I don't know how many what percentage of the team, but like, yeah, three to four
Yeah.
freshmen with four or five transfers and then a lot of retention in there, I
Yeah.
think would be the right balance.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, his first year, Mark Pope said that retention is going to be a big thing for this year's roster. Of course, that didn't happen this past year, but we all understand why. Like this past year's team did not mesh well. He just needed new and better players, I feel like. So, I mean, retention is very important, like you were saying, Mark Pope has said, but at the same time, like you've got to retain or you've got to have retention for the good players, the great players that you want to return in. Of course, some developmental pieces like Braden Hawthorne could be really great this upcoming year after redshirting. So we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, for sure. Like the big returners that are very necessary, like Malachi
Mhm.
Moreno. Like those are the guys that you got to
Yeah.
make sure that you get back and you don't let them leave. And then I mean, Colin Chandler is another example of like the one that did get away, but his is a completely different situation than most. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you've got to make sure that you get back the ones that are necessary, and
Hmm.
you just got to trim the fat and make sure that you're able to kind of let guys go and leave that you don't need, and make sure that you get the ones back that are very necessary.
Yeah. And I do want to hit on one other thing from the interview. So I think the big thing that was also mentioned in the article is just Mark Pope. He continues to have a great relationship with the Kentucky fan base, of course. He answered questions this past year on Twitter and Instagram by, everybody was sending him, tweets, asking him questions, of course. Some tweets were, rude and should have been asked to Mark Pope, but I think he handled everything well. But he answered some fans' questions through videos online, which I thought was great. And then, of course, most recently, he basically told any UK fan to come out to their practice. He made it open. It was the last practice for the summer, so I thought that was pretty cool. So Mark Pope, I think, understands it. He wants the support from the fan base, but at the same time, the only way he's also going to get support is by winning games, and he has to win some games this upcoming year and potentially, have a deep run in the NCAA tournament too.
Yeah, for sure. He gets what needs to be done, and it's winning, and winning big here. And but yeah, like that being like his main thing, and even the last offseason, like the whole change up of the practice center and having it number
Yeah.
9 the assignment, like it's just he gets it, and he's got to win and win big,
Mhm.
and hopefully this is a year that there's not injuries
Yeah.
and all that that kind of hold him back, and we get to really see what Mark Pope can do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think he definitely changed the perception around him. Maybe Dark Pope, maybe Bearded Mark Pope, whatever you want to call him. But I think once he landed, Momcilovic, he was able to keep Malachi Moreno and then basically got Ryan Hampton in like, I think it was like 10 days. He did all that. And basically the perception changed with him saying, wow, he can actually land recruits. And, like maybe it helped once you added Mo Williams to the staff, but it was insane in like a 10-day period that you kept Malachi Marino, then you get Milan Momcilovic, and then of course getting Ryan Hampton. So insane.
Yeah, that was wild. It was a crazy back to back to back. Because yeah, I think it was like Malachi, and then it went Milan was like
Three
Friday
days.
night or something, and then
Yeah,
it
3 days
was Ryan
later.
Hampton was Sunday. So it was
Yeah.
like it was boom, 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 boom,
Yep.
and yeah, like you said, it completely flipped everything. And it seemed like not only within Kentucky's like fan base and within BBN and everything, like national media started to turn their heads a little bit and
Yeah.
be like, all right, well, hold on, all right, Mark Pope's got some things turned around here, and yeah, the beard was a big thing this offseason. It was pretty funny. It was like, well, yeah, Dark Pope is here, and
Yeah.
he's growing that beard out.
Yeah, for sure. And one other thing I want to talk about his quote. He said, "This is not my team. This is our team," referring to the fan base. So I'm just glad he's, like I said, getting the fan base involved and making sure they are heard too.
Yeah, I do like that. And I like the off season when they just went on this trip recently when they wear the shirts that say
Yeah.
Kentucky's team. Like I just like the little touch there that this is not my team, this is not your team, this is our team, and it's a collective thing because it's different here. It's not like most places,
Mhm.
and I like that he says that and makes it very apparent to everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's wrap up talking about Kentucky basketball with these two questions, and then we'll quickly hit on Kentucky football since, of course, they had their first scrimmage this past Saturday. But the two questions I want to ask, do you think actually Pope fixed the problems from year two going to year three? And then the other question I have, do you think Kentucky will get to the Final Four?
All right, first question is yes, definitely.
Yeah,
I think also, the ones that don't even get mentioned enough, I think Jerome Morton and Mason Williams, like when they're giving the spot minutes and fill minutes, I think they're still going to do a really good job at creating. Mason Williams is going to be able to score really well, but Jerome Morton's the guy that's played a lot of
Mhm.
basketball and he's going to be able to create and all that too. But Zumiello, like the physicality, the bully ball in him, like getting his feet in the paint, that's going to be exceptional.
Yeah,
And he's not only going to be creating for all the other guys, but also his counterpart in the backcourt. Like he's gonna be able to create for Alex a little bit too. So yeah, I think he fixed that problem. The creator vibe, I think is what he said. A whole lot this offseason. I think he fixed that. He fixed the shooting. He brought back the shooting that I think we needed. He brought in the best shooter that college basketball has seen in quite some time. So
Yep.
those are the two big things that I was a little bit worried about from last year. He fixed those, and as of August 18th, I'm going to say yes, Kentucky makes the Final Four.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, to answer the questions that I gave to you, so I do think he solved the problems from year two. Of course, I still worry about three-point shooting. Yes, you have, the best three-point shooter in all of college basketball with Milan Momcilovic. And then, of course, Cam Williams was a great three-point shooter. But hopefully, other players can consistently make their shots, whether it be Zoom Diallo, Alex Wilkins, Jerome Morton, Braden Hawthorne, just naming players. Just hopefully they can consistently make their shots. And like I said, I think this year's team will be definitely better than last year's team with three-point shooting. And overall, I feel better with what they have. Of course, at the beginning of last year, I was saying they're going to the Final Four. They have the best roster, but now, after how last year played out, I do think this year's roster is definitely better than last year. And for me, I don't think they will make it to the Final Four. Of course, Tuesday, August 18th. This could completely change before the season starts. I guess it just depends on how the exhibition games play out. Of course, we're playing against Texas Tech. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the podcast, but an exhibition game against Texas Tech that will be insane to see. But right now, I would say no. I think they will make it to the Elite Eight for the first time since the 2018-2019 season. So hopefully that does happen because we need a deep run. Like, yes, we all want to win championships every year, but I would consider an Elite Eight run a success with everything that has happened in the past decade.
Yeah, for sure. I also think it depends a lot on just like the next week,
Yeah.
because some things can change roster wise in the next week. But
Mhm.
I also the guy that informed me that we were playing Texas Tech a few weeks ago, he hasn't told me the team, but there is another like
Big 12.
marquee-ish opponent. And yeah, I think Big 12 is like kind of he didn't say Big 12, but he was like hinting things that made it seem like it could be like one of those type of middle of the pack Big 12 teams. Like
Mhm.
his example was similar to Georgetown last year, where it's not like a huge crazy name team, but it's not a bad opponent by any means. So
UT.
yeah, yeah, maybe so. But
Yeah, maybe.
also hopefully it doesn't end up like Georgetown last year. That's
Yeah,
kind of also my hope.
hopefully where we don't lose by what 15 points or however much it was at home. That was awful.
Yeah, that was rough. That was a rough one.
It was definitely a rough one. Yep, but it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the last time UK played against Texas Tech was the 2019-2020 season. Emmanuel quickly, of course, hit the half court shot going into halftime, which basically, helped UK to win that game because I think they won by 2 or 3 points. And then, of course, Ashton Hagens, he causes a turnover at the end with Texas Tech, and then basically that turnover, UK was able to win that game. But just an insane game. I remember watching it with my friends from my hometown. They came up to Bowling Green that weekend.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure what the school was. That was my senior year of high school. We were playing I think we were playing basketball. We had a game at Breckenridge County that night. Yep, it
Mhm.
was definitely Breckenridge County. And we played there. And then as soon as we got out, we turned the game on. Me and a couple of the buddies that are just like the diehards that we were like, all right, fun, got our game done, we won, whatever. Let's go watch the game. As soon as we turned that game on, the shot happened, and I was like, "This is the coolest thing ever. This is wild." So, yeah, I definitely have some good memories of that game.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else you want to talk about with basketball before we just talk about football and what Will Stein and the coaching staff had to say about the first scrimmage?
I think I'm good on basketball.
Before we talk about the scrimmage, I do want to say I am very excited to see Alex Safari practicing with the team. So hopefully he will be a part of the roster. Of course, he's a part of the Colorado injunction. So as long as that continues to go through, he will be able to play this upcoming year, which will be great. Another side note that I have to say is Antonio Berry. He was going to be an edge rusher for Kentucky, but the NCAA has ruled him ineligible for this upcoming year, which is a huge loss. He was probably going to be the number two edge rusher if I had to guess, but He can no longer play college football at all. It'll be interesting to see, if Antonio Barry or UK tries to sue the NCAA to get him another year of eligibility, but right now he is currently out.
Yeah, it stinks because I think it was either the last podcast or two podcasts ago we were talking about the coaching staff. I don't remember who it was specifically, talking very highly of Antonio Barry and
Yeah,
like NFL scouts loving him and all that different stuff. So yeah, that stinks. But with the bad, you got the good, and it was funny because it happened like around the same time.
yeah,
And Alex Safari is practicing with the team, so that's exciting. Will Stein seemed pretty fired up
yeah,
about it too, and I think he will definitely be a great impact right away. Hopefully,
yeah.
all this goes through and gets cleared.
Yeah, for sure. And before we get into the scrimmage, I mean, I feel like UK will have probably one of the best safety rooms, and then of course one of the best like linebacker rooms if Alex Safari is granted eligibility. Like that would be insane for both rooms. Like the linebacker room would be insane with Grant Godfrey and of course Alex Safari too.
Yeah, that linebacker room would go from just whatever to like very solid with
Hmm.
some veteran leadership and Alex Safari, a guy that's just played a whole lot of football
Hmm.
and I mean he would have to be because he's played. Did I don't remember how much he like played his freshman year, but he's played a whole lot of football already.
Yeah.
So he'd have to be like up there and like one of the like most snaps played or something by the
Yeah,
time he's
probably.
done.
Could you imagine if Keaton Wade also stayed here at UK instead of transfer to Colorado to be with his, twin brother Destin Wade? Like, how insane UK's defense would have
Man,
been. Yeah,
yeah,
crazy.
that would have been absolutely crazy.
Yeah, for sure. But let's get into the scrimmage real quick, and then we'll wrap up the podcast quickly. But a few things I want to hit on. So Will Stein, he described the first scrimmage as sloppy. He basically said that he will not explain. He will not basically say heat and weather. He's not using that as an excuse. Like he wants the team to perform well. They did not perform well at all. But he also said that he did not want to make any major judgments on this year's team because, they're still installing plays, trying to perfect schemes. So, like I said, it'll be interesting to see. He also added that the team did not play clean football, had too many penalties, which, makes sense. The offense struggled to sustain drives. The defense gave up several explosive plays. But he did say that neither side played up to its standard for the offense or defense, and he was also very disappointed in the enthusiasm and energy going into the scrimmage. He said basically starting out in stretching where the team didn't feel like it was fired up at all to play their first scrimmage inside of Kroger Field. Also said that the team was in survival mode instead of attack mode, which stinks because you always want your team to be able to attack. And then he also mentioned like the team had no urgency, it felt like. Uh, Another thing I really want to hit on though is he said that the first team defense versus first team offense, it wasn't close at all. Like the first team defense just was able to beat up on the first team offense, which is very surprising. But he did say the second team units were more even, so that's good to hear at least. But I feel bad because like you want the offense to be successful. Like Will Stein, he's known as an offensive guru, and with bringing in your star quarterback with Kenny Minchey, of course, Nick Anderson as probably your wide receiver one. Like you want it to be successful, and hopefully it will be.
Yeah, no doubt. And obviously, like you mentioned, Will Stein is the offensive guy, and Joe Sloan is the offensive guy, and you hope that like you hear about them crushing it right away. But he also talked about in his interview and all that, like his first year at Oregon, he had the Bo Nix, and he was thinking that maybe they didn't even like score a touchdown or something
Yeah, they didn't even score a
in
touchdown.
their scrimmage. So yeah, it's not something I'm like worried about. I think the one worry, if any, is just like the how disappointed he sounds with the energy and enthusiasm and like urgency. Because like if you're struggling to find it in mid-August when you're right there, when
Yeah.
you're like knocking at the door of the season, then that means like there's going to be a certain point throughout the season where there's going to be maybe something lacking. Like it shouldn't be something at this point that it should be a problem. Like if you're far away from the season, it's like, oh, well, maybe you can get a little lackadaisical or whatever. But Yeah, so that was a little bit disappointing to hear, but the whole with the trade-off of getting rid of Stoops and getting Will Stein in and getting Jay Bateman over is like you will give up those big plays
Yeah.
defensively. And I think for him to mention big plays, I think there were probably a lot of big plays. Like
Mhm.
it probably means that there was a ton of those happening. Those will happen actually throughout the season, but hopefully
Yeah.
it's not on a crazy level.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's just the energy and effort and all that is just
Mhm.
kind of the takeaway for me, where it's like, man, that's really unfortunate to hear, but it's still at this point also like there's a lot of this too with basketball and football and like with all sports really. Like playing sports your whole life, you just kind of get to the point that you get tired of playing your own guys.
Yep.
Like you're just ready to go knock somebody else's head off and play somebody in Youngstown State that'll be wearing red. Like you're
Yeah.
ready to do that at this point, instead of playing your own guys. So maybe there's a little bit of that mixed in
Yeah.
there as well.
Yeah. I remember Mark Stoops last year before the season started. Basically, he was like, I really just want there to be a preseason in college football where we'll be able to play against the opponents before the season starts because, like you were mentioning, like the players get tired of playing against each other. And, sometimes, fights do happen during practice. And I mean, I saw a couple of times whenever I went to a Stoops practice where, it wasn't like a fist fight or anything. It was just a little scuffle between some teammates. So the players had to break it up, but everything was all good. But you just get annoyed playing, against your same players every single day, and you want somebody new to tackle, somebody new to hit, So it'll be fun to see, come week one. Hopefully, though, the team will bring the juice. I mean, like what Will Stein says, I think it's juiceless, it's useless, something like that. So always bringing that juice, and hopefully, going forward with the scrimmages, like the team will continue to bring the juice, unlike the first scrimmage, and just, get the team fired up, get the crowd all fired up.
Yeah, juiceful is useful and juiceless is useless. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it seems like they were definitely a little bit juiceless
Yeah.
in this one, but yeah, the
More juiceless.
preseason thing is interesting and that'd be fun. I mean, if you could end up working something like that. I think last year was it Colorado and like no like North Carolina or somebody was supposed to like play in the middle of last offseason or
Hmm.
something, but the NCAA was like, no, we're not doing that. And like
Yeah.
it ended up getting shut down. I don't remember who it was. I want to say it was like Colorado and somebody, but I can't remember who. But that is an interesting idea. Like it makes it to where these brothers and I mean you get to where you're closer than like even siblings sometimes with these guys, and so
Yeah.
you start to butt heads, and you also don't want to maybe hit at a full 100% capacity,
Yeah.
like because you don't want to hurt your guys. So, yeah, I'm sure there's a little bit of just being tired of hitting on your own guys and just going to want to play against somebody else.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see how the offense will be because you do have to worry about injuries. Of course, I know Will Stein has kept a lot of players out, mainly on the offensive side, just because they're trying to make sure they are 100% come fall, come, football season with Nick Anderson more than likely being your wide receiver one coming from LSU before LSU, he was at Oklahoma. So he's had a lot of injuries during his college career. You also have CJ Baxter coming from Texas, and he's had a lot of injuries, but as long as you can keep both close to 100%, you're going to be fine, I feel like.
Yeah, no doubt. And like you mentioned, a lot of these guys being held out and stuff is part of why maybe the offense wasn't looking like the like I don't know, Lions from a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And even like what we had talked about a few minutes ago with like them not scoring a point with Bo Nix and all that, like in their first scrimmage, and then they
Mhm.
led the country in points per game or
Yeah.
something. So yeah, I think like by the time you're out there and you're rolling with your actual guys and healthy, knock on wood, then maybe it looks completely different. You're like
Mhm.
one of the best offenses in the country,
Mhm.
and maybe some of the hype that you're kind of getting in the offseason, it all makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like for Will Stein's offense, I think we need to be probably averaging like close to 30 points per game, like 27 points per game or something like that. That's all I really want. I want us to be able to score multiple touchdowns a game. Of course, our defense being able to step up too, but I feel like 24, 27 points is like a good goal. I don't know. Could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, 27, 28 points, somewhere around there. Because like you mentioned, the break don't bend is what I'll call the defense, and because it won't be the Brad White 15 yards off
Yeah,
anymore. We're gonna be taking some gambles. Like you're gonna be giving up a ton of points, and I mean now there's not a ton of the cupcake games, but like in the two games, Youngstown State, South Alabama, like those are the games that you're gonna have to like really put up some points.
yeah,
But even like some of the other games, like you're gonna have to just put a lot of points on the board to be in it,
yeah,
because we're gonna play some really good offenses this year, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm right there with you. You gotta average around 30 a
yeah.
game if you're gonna want to be competing.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of trying to put points up every game, basically Joe Sloan and Will Stein, they were talking about the quarterback room. Of course, everybody knows Kenny Minchey is going to be QB1, but it sounds like UK has found their QB2. Of course, it's not official, but it sounds like the Canadian quarterback, Cal Wither, will be QB2. He will be that over Matt Ponatowski, Brandon Ward, Zakai Long, just to name a few of the quarterbacks competing for the QB2 spot. But it just sounds like he's been the better overall player before. He was playing in Canada. He played at Ohio University for 3 years, and then, like I said, went from Ohio University and then went to play up in Canada, and now he's back in the U.S. playing at UK for his fifth and final year. So I'm very excited about that. I was really hoping maybe Matt Ponatowski would be QB2 four-star quarterback from the class of 2026, but it sounds like Wither is going to win that.
Yeah, it sounds like that. And I actually, I had gotten a text on Friday. This is somebody that knows a ref that was working the practice on Friday, and it said Cal Weather took the backup job for the QBs today. Um, and then it was like a couple other things. It was like Minchie threw a couple bad interceptions or something. Baxter didn't practice. But he said that every practice that he had been at up to that point, Ponatoski was the number two.
Uh-huh.
But then it had kind of gotten to the point that Will Stein would get aggravated and Joe Sloan would get aggravated at how much Matt Ponatoski would get to the point that he'd just put his head down and run. And it would just be like he'd bail out of situations too
Yeah.
quick. Kyle Wither, it was not like that. And
Hmm.
Kyle Wither, I mean, he's played a lot of football. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Like we've like this dude's just played a lot more.
Hmm.
So this is a different level of football for Matt Ponatoski, and it makes it interesting and honestly encouraging that your two and three are competing like this, neck and neck. And they're good at what their different things are. Like they both bring different aspects to it. So like I said, don't actually like that doesn't need reported. It's a text of somebody that knows
Yeah.
somebody that was the ref. So it's like we can see what happens there. But it's funny because
Yeah.
I got that text Friday, and then it was like Friday afternoon. It was like Cal Wither possibly QB2, and it was like, oh
Yeah.
shoot, well things might be happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way, I think we're gonna be in good hands
Yeah,
with
for
our
sure.
QB2.
Yeah, and just talking about whenever he was at Wilfred University this past year, he just threw for under 2,500 passing yards. While there, he was actually originally committed to Maryland before ultimately landing at Kentucky. So, I mean, it sounds like he was no average Joe. If you're committed to Maryland, of course, Maryland isn't the best in football, but like Maryland's still a great school to go to. So I'm glad he's at UK compared to Maryland.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, if you're going there, then obviously you've got a little something, and you can play some ball. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about it if he ends up being our backup, and I'll be cheering for him.
Yeah, and just to talk about a couple more things from the first scrimmage. Will Stein said that CJ Baxter looked really good during pre-practice, so he wasn't a part of the scrimmage just because they're trying to keep him healthy. So that's a good sign, at least. He was looking good there. They lessened the workload on Jason Patterson because it sounds like he's been probably like running back one, if I had to guess, just with all the injuries in the running back room. So it looks like Patterson has been taking a lot of the workload. I'm glad that Will Stein and the staff have lessened that for him, but it'll be interesting to see, like will Jason Patterson, will Martell's Carr Jr. have to take, a step up if we have any injuries in the running back room.
Yeah, like you said, the injury bug is certainly alive and well in that room. But I'm a huge Jason Patterson fan.
Mhm.
I'm very optimistic about what he can do. But yeah, with Baxter and Barnes, like they both, had to miss some time already, and hopefully that's not the
Mhm.
case once we actually kick the ball off and
Yeah,
start this season. But yeah, I mean, Martellus Carter Jr., like there's some depth there, but you don't want to have to like
yeah,
depend on the depth. I think it's more of a thing that you want to have as luxury and not
mhm,
necessity. So
yeah.
yeah, hopefully that doesn't end up being the case, but it's
Mhm.
definitely been something that's been apparent as of recent.
And then, of course, they also added two running backs from JUCO too, so they're a part of the roster. But it'll be weird to see Martellus Carr Jr. moving over from safety to being a running back. What Will Stein had to say about him is basically when he knows what he's doing, he is very comfortable. But whenever he doesn't know, like he's not comfortable at all. So hopefully, Martellus Carr Jr. can learn the playbook quickly and be very comfortable in what he's doing.
Yeah, the stud athlete. So I mean, just even physically being able to make the transition from one side of the ball to the other is impressive. But yeah,
Mhm.
hopefully he's able to get the playbook down and make a big time impact this year.
Yeah. And then there's only really one other thing I want to talk about the scrimmage, and we can wrap it up. But uh, I'm really excited to see what Grant Coffrey can do. Of course, we mentioned him like he's a linebacker, so it would be great to see him and Afari teamed up. But basically, he thinks that Grant Goffrey could be, the team captain on the defensive side. Everybody thought it might have been Ty Bryant, but it sounds like, Goffrey might be taking that role. And of course, the communication helmet is usually in the linebacker room. It's not usually a safety or whatever it might be. So to see it go from Ty Bryant potentially like your star player, who has been with the program since the class of 2021. I want to say 2021 or 2022, but for him to be like supposed to be the vocal leader, it sounds like it might be Grant Godfrey. Nothing, and like I said, no offense to Ty Bryant because he's going to be really great for this upcoming year's team for UK, but to see it go from Ty Bryant to now maybe Grant Godfrey instead, interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And Grant Godfrey's one of the names that like one of the few names that returned back with the change in coaching and everything. So he's a name that like a lot of BBN probably knows or rings a bell or whatever. And I think he's gonna play some really good football for us this year. And yeah, like you mentioned, the communication and all of that kind of goes through the linebacker. Linebacker is the quarterback of the defense. So
Yeah.
yeah, Ty Bryant's gonna have a great year. I have no doubt in my mind he's gonna be one of the best safeties in America. But Greg Godfrey, him taking steps forward and being a vocal and physical leader, I
Yep.
think is gonna be huge for this team.
Yeah, and like I said, he's going to be really great this upcoming year. And if you add a Farley, like your safeties and linebacker room is going to be like the best in the country, I feel like.
Yeah, if you had Alex Afari, I mean, you go from a defense that's giving up a lot of big shots to a defense that is on their P's and Q's and knows what's going on
Yeah.
because of veteran leadership.
Yeah, for sure. The only other thing I really want to add, of course, the preseason AP poll finally came out. Of course, no surprise, Kentucky's not on the list, so not ranked going into the first year under Will Stein, which makes complete sense because we were so
Snubbed.
bad the past 2 years. What do you say?
I said snubbed.
Oh yeah, we got snubbed for sure. But I do want to add though that Kentucky will have to play right now 7 teams that are currently in the preseason AP top 25, which is insane to think about. And of course, some teams could fall out of the top 25. Some teams could easily move into the top 25 as well. But right now, Kentucky football will have to play 7 ranked teams going to the year, which is insane.
Yeah, and I think four of them end up being on the road too. So it's not going to be easy at all. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's funny because it feels like the AP poll, the preseason AP poll every year, it starts with instead of going 1 to 25, they go 25 Missouri. All right, and then who are we going to put at 24? That's just what it feels like. Feels like every year they're just a shoe in to be like 25 or 24. Like they could end up having like a change in everything in the program, and it feels like they'd probably just put that logo
Yeah.
right there. So they snuck in there. But yeah, it's not going to be easy. That's certainly the truth. And On three put out that graphic. It was like us, Texas, and Arkansas are the teams that play the most
Well,
ranked teams.
yeah.
So it's gonna be difficult with a lot of those tough games. Because even like you can make an argument some of the best teams that you play are the ones that you get at home, which is kind of the opposite. Like you're like, well, if you're going to lose anyways, like play them on the road, get some
Yeah.
of the more manageable opponents at
Mhm.
home. But yeah, it's gonna be tough.
It definitely will be tough, but do you have anything else you want to add on the football side?
I don't think so. Not off the top of
Yeah.
my head.
Yeah, before we wrap up the podcast, though, I also want to say happy birthday to Ryan Lemon. It was his 60th birthday. I don't know if you saw the video, but Mario Maitland, he posted on his Twitter, his parents, Ryan Lemon's parents calling into the KSR show to wish him a happy birthday, and Ryan Lemon, got really emotional and everything. And he's gone through a lot this past year, and I'm just happy he's now fully healthy. Of course, he had cancer earlier this year. It got removed. So happy, he's now fully healthy and he's able to return to KSR. And like I said, happy birthday to him too.
Yeah, no doubt. He deserves all the birthday wishes, and he deserves an incredible new year. And I mean, he's one of the guys that in media he like KSR is one of the first podcasts that I was listening to, and outside of like watching ESPN growing up, KSR is like my like
Hmm.
original source of like sports entertainment.
Yeah.
And Ryan Lemon is a big part of that. Like he's an endless ball of joy, and like you mentioned, he's been through a ton. Not only it's been so much in this last year, but even so much throughout his life and in the
Yeah.
last like 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
and a lot of stuff that even goes unsaid. So
Hmm.
yeah, prayers for him that he continues to like keep getting better and keep improving throughout life. But super
Yeah.
thankful for him and all that he's done with KSR, and definitely happy birthday to him.
Yeah. Happy birthday to him. I could not imagine being in the hospital for 11 days. So, woof.
No, no way. He is an absolute trooper.
Yeah, he definitely is. And like I said, just happy he's fully healthy. And I'm just happy, his parents are still alive and they were able to wish him a happy birthday. And I just saw that video though earlier. It got me really teary-eyed and just happy for him and just happy for everybody.
Yeah, that was a really cool moment. That was an awesome moment in time there.
Yeah, for sure. But we appreciate you all watching on YouTube and of course listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But this is Chris Beesmore
And Cameron Waddle.
signing out. Have a great week, everybody.